Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 97 of the Gut Wrench Podcast. This will be the 9/11 tribute show. I try to do one of these once a year just because whoever was president at the time, for one reason or another, has this famous quote, and that famous quote is, "We will never forget." And then I'm like, okay, buddy, okay, we will never forget. I got you. We're not supposed to forget. And for that matter, those of you who are maybe a little bit younger, maybe you're you don't understand what exactly it was that happened that day, is something that I guess we're going to have to talk about. We're just going to have an adult conversation about what happened, and that's a very immature way of handling things, I mean, I seen a meme, for those of you wondering too, and I'm sure that there are a lot of like, no, 9/11 jokes, haha, blow up building, haha, building go boom, 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 haha, me laugh, haha, that very funny, whatever. But I seen a meme, and it was sort of unexpected, and it was kind of like terrorists have now grown accustomed to, instead of flying planes into buildings, throwing pieces of buildings, and then it showed like a skyscraper being thrown at a plane, not while it was in the air, but rather while it was trying to take off from the runway. And the narrator then said no one was hurt, but a lot of people were surprised. And I was, okay, that's terrible. That's just awful. But at the same time, I mean, it's supposed to be funny, but I don't even know if that kind of humor is it wet or is it dry? Can you guys, like, tell me, is that kind of humor sort of like, oh yeah, I was late to the office, and I had like a whole spiel of just 9/11 jokes, haha, me be funny, building fly into plane blow up, boom, building blow up, big boom boom, I had a whole spiel of them, and for that matter, I'd watched a whole bunch of Family Guy before this, and it was like the guy who got fired on September 10th, and then it showed like Mordecai or Rigby doing like a whole big dance, and then I was like, oh my God, you gotta be joking right now. The guy who got fired on September 10th. Yes, I get it, buddy. Or there was another one, let me swift through these. Like, they're possibly off color a little bit, maybe. Anyway, welcome to episode 97 of the Gut Wrench Podcast. And yes, my name is Mocha. This is the Gut Wrench Podcast. And a lot of people here had a lot to say. Let's just put it that way. USA chants start as Vince McMahon says tonight, the spirit of America lives here in Houston, Texas. That's funny because according to Family Guy, the spirit of Massachusetts is the spirit of America. The spirit of the red, white, and blue. The spirit of Massachusetts is the spirit of America. I don't know. Well, he says that according to Vince McMahon, the spirit of America lives here in Houston, Texas, because they are in a suburb of Houston, Texas, known as Corpus Christi. As this is the 9/11 tribute show that I do once a year, because I was told as a child that to never forget that this day happened, and McMahon says that the public assembly of tonight's message will be not to live in fear, and that he wants to stand up to terrorism. He wants America to stand up to terrorism. USA chants ensue. WWF would like to thank you for the honor and the privilege to be performing in front of you tonight. The beautiful people. Yes. So the theme song at the time was Marilyn Manson, "The Beautiful People, the Beautiful People." Of course, you're all probably familiar with it, unless you're, as I stated before, you're a little bit younger. You know, someone younger than me wouldn't really understand. But if I'm right, and I usually am at these things, but I remember, and I could be remembering this wrong, could be a whole Mandela effect thing, or maybe I'm just recalling something that's not quite correct. I remember "The Beautiful People" as the song that opened Impact Wrestling for the longest time. So wouldn't it be a conflict of interest for them to open, SmackDown, and then afterwards open Impact Wrestling, their competitor? At the same time, wouldn't it be a conflict of interest for DraftKings to sponsor WWE, and then in the next AEW event sponsor AEW, but they continuously go to both companies, and I'm not sure how they're able to do that. Because, let's face it, Coca-Cola, if you sponsor Coca-Cola, you can't then go and be like, "Hey, Pepsi, you mind if I do a commercial with you too?" No, that's not how that works. Anyway, JR and Paul Heyman on commentary for this night. The entire roster lines up. They line up in the, sort of like from the back, or from the front rather, of the arena. And it's referees, it's doctors, it's alumni from WWE's past. It's a whole bunch of just employees, road agents, possibly trainers, professional wrestlers, like I said, referees, doctors. They're all lined up and they're standing shoulder to shoulder as Lillian Garcia. And here's the thing, I don't know if she's singing the national anthem, or I don't know if she's singing the Pledge of Allegiance, or I don't know if that's the same thing, Howard Finkel says it once, and then after that, I never bothered to rewind to hear him again. But it's the one where it's, "And the rockets' red barrels, the bombs burst things in air, gave proof through the night, and our flag was still there, oh, say your Star-Spangled Banner." Yeah, so I don't know. I know that the name of the song is Star-Spangled Banner, but I just don't know whether or not that's the Pledge of Allegiance. It possibly isn't, because, let's be honest, I pledge of allegiance to the flag. I feel as though that I just answered my question, even though it was on my notes here. So it must be like the national anthem. Or the national anthem, Star-Spangled Banner. Are those the same thing? The national anthem is the Star-Spangled Banner? I guess I'll have to look that up later. But anyway, it's not the point. And also gave many examples. Many examples of wrestling moves that have the same name but are essentially the same move. Stuff like the Olympic Slam and the Angle Slam, or the small package. Hang on, let me find my place again. The small package driver and the headlock driver, the Razor's Edge and the Outsider's Edge, the inside cradle and the small package. These are all wrestling moves that go by two different names but are essentially the same wrestling move. Lillian is getting emotional, and she also gets a standing ovation from the superstars, the referees, and USA chants ensue as they echo throughout the arena. Edge gives a brief statement in the show as to what the right thing to do tonight was. So he was having an internal conflict as to whether or not he should, be here tonight, as to whether or not this is the, quote, right thing to do. Keep in mind that 9/11 just happened. It was Tuesday. Tuesday morning is what they keep saying is when it happened. And you can imagine the shock, the dismay on their faces. And for those of you who don't know, whenever I was watching some news, whenever I was watching like the backhanded news that was happening at around this time for research purposes, whenever that first plane hit, there were a lot of people who were taking out like their Kodak cameras. They were taking pictures of the hole that was in the first building that got struck. And there was smoke pouring out of it. And a lot of people were just like walking passively by it, almost like, wow, that's so strange. There's a hole in that building. Oh, well, that's New York for you. Almost like just hey, that was an accident. We can get that fixed in no time. All right, people, move along. And then you got these cops, and they're probably like, yeah, just get on with your day. And there's people who are taking pictures and shit, And that's what I've seen, at least, and news reporters and a whole bunch of other things. Because they didn't realize, possibly, that they were in danger. That's something known as the bystander effect. If there were 300 people, as just a number, if there were 300 people there, let's say 150 women and 150 men, just for an example, and there was a kidnapping that happened in broad daylight, you want to know what would happen? 150 men would look at themselves, or look at each other rather. Somebody should do something, Think about it this way. Bank robbing, right? You go in, you go to rob a bank, right? Well, the teller is obviously going to do as you ask because they value their lives over any monetary value that they might have in some drawer, and for that matter, they want to keep their jobs. So, if that's the case, and I'm just saying this as an example, I'm not threatening any sort of terroristic threats here. If that's the case, what happens? These people who usually, would be like, oh yeah, I would totally stand up and fight. Something takes them over, and of course it's called the bystander effect. So that's what people do. They clam up, and then they get on the ground, and then they're like, okay, I'll listen to you, just don't hurt me, don't hurt me, don't hurt me. And that's exactly what happened. Somebody should do something, But if you know anything about psychology, you know anything about the bystander effect. On the morning of September 11th, that was a classic sign of the bystander effect. Somebody should do something, but it's not my job to do anything. It's not my place to do anything. Edge gives a statement, though, and you'll see these statements throughout the night, by the way, of what the right thing to do tonight was, and he comes to the conclusion that the act that committed will not be forgotten, as George Bush said, whichever one, George W. or for that matter, George Bush. the act that was committed will not be forgotten, but at the same time, he has a job to do, and his job is to put smiles on the faces of all of the people who bought a ticket here tonight. And that's the right thing to do. Ricky Santana gives his condolences, basically reiterating what it was that Nancy McMahon, it's supposed to say Vince McMahon, but for some reason my fucking notes say Nancy McMahon, had to say whenever he opened the show. The spirit of America will not be broken. And here's a fun little one for you. Hurricane and Lance Storm versus the Hardy Boys. So, for those of you who don't know, a Category 1 tropical storm is called a storm, a tropical storm. It's not yet a hurricane. However, a Category 2, I think it's a Category 2 or higher, is known as a hurricane. So, you got Lance Storm and stand back. There's a hurricane coming through. Literally his entrance music, by the way. Anyway, a hurricane starts to build momentum, and in doing so, he taunts every time he lands a move on Matt Hardy. However, Matt Hardy then proceeds to land a move on the hurricane, and then afterwards does the taunt straight back to him. Matt Hardy reverses a hip toss into a hip toss of his own, and the hurricane, and in doing so he mocks the hurricane with the taunt that the hurricane just mocked Matt Hardy with. Then Hardy gets a near fall off a schoolboy pin attempt. Lance gets thrown out of the ring by Jeff Hardy. Jeff gets help from his brother to double team the Hurricane. Hurricane gets a tag to Storm. Note, get off subject, but category of Storm jokes here were made. Lance Storm, Hurricane, mention the two boys who used. Okay. So, also, on another note, check this out. There were two other wrestlers who used to wrestle, and I'm not sure where exactly they are, what exactly happened to them. I haven't been updated on them. I haven't bothered to get an update on them, but one of them was named Earthquake, and the other one was named Typhoon. And they collectively were known as the Natural Disasters. They were also almost 400 fucking pounds. God damn, they were some big boys. Anyway, didn't mean to blow into my microphone like that, but crossbody by the Hurricane, and only gets a 2. He gets a near fall. Storm gets a 2 count off the super kick on Matt Hardy. Lita hits a Rana on Hurricane on the outside, but Jim Ross says that the Rana was hit by Jeff Hardy on the outside. It was Lita wearing a red tank top, while that's what I identified as the thing moving rather quickly, I might add, as Jeff Hardy is actually wearing a white tank top, going up top to hit a swanton on Lance Storm for the 3 count and the win. I give it 3 out of 5 stars. Was a quick, nicely paced match. Was very good, and it got a lot of crowd involvement. The crowd got loud. I couldn't identify, and seems to have a lot of good things in this match. A really nice pace for an opening contest. They're chanting something that I couldn't identify. people start to get unglued, and they see the Rock give an impact statement, and that's what I'll call these from here on out, is sort of an impact statement, because almost after every match they go almost like to this backstage arena wherever there's like a small holographic looking American flag behind them, and practically everyone except for Hulk Hogan is there because for whatever reason Hulk Hogan wasn't there, despite the fact that WCW had been put out of business for quite some time. So maybe they just weren't in good standings with Hulk Hogan, or maybe he was waiting for his Time Warner contract to run its course. And for those of you who don't know what that is basically a huge amount of money paid to the people who Time Warner bought out. You know, whenever they bought out the TNT contracts, some sort of TV contract that basically said, hey, you're not to wrestle until such and such date, or else you won't get this huge amount of money. And it's like, so you mean to tell me that I'm just getting paid to sit at the house? He's like, that's exactly right. Just don't make any public appearances, and this huge amount of money right here, it's yours. Okay, sounds good to me. The Rock seems rather uncomfortable when doing some sort of statement, struggling to keep his demeanor. He passively said he's glad it wasn't his family in the rubble. I couldn't imagine, here's his exact words almost, or paraphrasing rather, I couldn't imagine if it was my family, was his exact words. And a lot of people would agree with him on that statement. He's not given his usual charismatic demeanor, is what I'm trying to say. You know, there is no pie-eating, eyebrow-raising, trail-blazing, stick your finger on the gas, stick my foot in your ass. You know, there's none of that. The Rock's really not The Rock. You know, he's more like Dwayne Johnson here. He's almost like he's, oh man, this terrible event that just transpired. My condolences to you and your family. Like how do I say this? Like the shy kid at school or something. Okay, as RVD, the Hardcore Champion, faces off against Spike Dudley. Here's something that was wrong with this match, by the way. They say that it's, quote, a non-title match, but if the Hardcore Champion is having a match, wouldn't the 24/7 rule be in effect? Am I right? I mean, think about that for a minute. Because the 24/7 rule states that no matter where, no matter when, that your title is on the line at any given time. Right? I remember that. And I'm just going to come out and say it. The only reason I remember the 24/7 rule is simply because I used to play this video game called WWF No Mercy. And they basically gave me the rundown of what the 24/7 rule was. And I just adapted it into real life because you would have to always keep your head on a swivel in that video game. Because it was almost like, oh, look at that, here comes another opponent. And you just have to make sure to almost like knock your opponent's block off, you know, make sure the fix their wagon, and then just take the title and then run with it. Anyway, a non-title match, as the hardcore champion, RVD, Rob Van Dam, no relation to Cloyd Van Dam, by the way, versus Spike Dudley. He might have some relation to the aforementioned Dudley boys. We'll talk about them in just a minute. RVD with a spinning heel kick. I'm not sure whether or not it's called a heel kick or a wheel kick, but I mean, either way, a heel and a wheel sounds about the same thing, you know, because unless you're talking about like those fucking heels that women wear for whatever reason, they're just asking to break their ankles, or for that matter, the heels that I have to climb up before I can get to my house, or for that matter, the dirty fucking heels that we see on professional wrestling sometimes. But in this case, or for that matter, the heels that sometimes we need whenever we're, you know, oh man, I got no health left, I need a heel, you know, like, hey guys, come over here and revive me, heal me, you know, while you're trying to play COD Zombies, but there's these dickheads who, maybe they just don't understand English. They're just like, and then I'm, you know, just revive me. And he's like, I hope that didn't come off as too racist, but you know, I just don't know what it is that the man's saying to me. And last week I was playing COD Zombies, and this motherfucker wouldn't heal me. He wouldn't revive me. He was like, and I'm like, okay, buddy, I don't speak Ethiopian. Could you please open your mouth a little bit wider and speak some English? Anyway, I'm going to get straight back to it and stop being racist, if that's what you want to call me. But literally, he was making like clicking noises. Anyway, RVD with a chair. I cannot read my notes here. Okay, got it. RVG, holy crap. RVD with a chair, Spike reverses into a victory roll, but only gets a 2 count. RVD with a Lionsault lands on his feet, and when he clears Spike Dudley from the backwards facing aforementioned Lionsault, by the way, he clears Spike Dudley. He still had the wherewithal of landing on his feet, grabbing the chair that was in front of him, and then afterwards doing what many would consider to be the Van Daminator, my fault. The Van Terminator is a different move. With a leap from halfway across the ring, he picks up the win off the pinfall through the 3 count. And I'm telling you guys, he was halfway across the ring. That man could have been a good 6-7 feet, but RVD was able to just clear that. You know how usually the wrestler will like scoot? Almost like, I mean, the camera barely catches that whenever it does happen. But I would imagine if you've been to a live event or something, then you'll see the wrestler almost like moving in place, you know, almost to like, hey, you think that you could hit me from here, you know? And usually you'll see like Hulk Hogan scooting his almost, I don't want to say lifeless body, because it's not something that I want to say, but Hulk Hogan scooting like in place to make sure that Roddy Piper, or not Roddy Piper, Macho Man can hit his elbow, you know, because he's right there. He's right under him. All he has to do is hit the damn elbow, and it's going to look spectacular. It's going to look great. You know, you guys know where I'm going with this. But RVD, no, he just like, he doesn't even pick the closest corner to where Spike Dudley is either. He picks like the second furthest corner from where Spike Dudley is. Had he would have picked the closest corner, he would have probably made it. he's just making his own job harder than what it has to be. And RVD wins with a frog splash from halfway across the ring. 3.5 out of 5 stars. It would have been 4 out of 5, but I had something to say with this match. With the story, really, you didn't have that much of a story. It didn't make sense with the 24/7 rule being in place or in effect, that there's a, quote, non-title match, end quote, and this match was a little too short for me. Chris Jericho says right now he would rather be in NYC, New York City, in order to help the cleanup crew, or for that matter, in order to help the rescue efforts. And here's a question that I had. I put it here on my notes. It says, that brings up an interesting question. Were there people who were volunteering to help for 9/11? Or was it just firefighters and police, construction workers, doctors, people of that nature? Was it just people like that? Or were there actually like citizens who were like, you know what, I'm gonna help contribute to this right here? Was there a point in New York City where all the crime just went down because even the drug addicts, the people who were robbing and murdering, they were like, damn, this is pretty dark. The fuck, man? I mean, I only killed one guy last week. You killed whole buildings, brother. What are you doing? Like, God, you're on a whole new level. How come I didn't think of that? No, I'm joking. Shut up. And does anyone else think that it's weird that the emergency number that we call here in America is literally 9/11? This can't be some conspiracy theory that I'm coming up with. I mean, think about that for a minute, in case you didn't already think about it. I mean, call 911. No, please don't call 911. Well, then at least call 911. Like, what's the number for 911? Jesus Christ, I just keep coming up with them. Whew. Okay, gotta calm down. Gotta take a deep breath. Gotta finish the rest of this. Jericho goes on he goes on to say something along the lines of, you need to hold your loved ones a little bit tighter, maybe see the colors in life a little bit more. And he's basically saying exactly what everyone else is saying, except for he's saying you don't know what you got until it's gone, and that's poetic for Jericho to say, because let's be honest, he's the lead singer to a band known as Fozzy, for those of you who didn't know. Michael P.S. Hayes, he says America is not perfect. Okay, so he goes on somewhat of a tangent here, but they don't cut him off, which is interesting to me. It's interesting to me because they do cut someone off. Here in a minute or two, they cut off Bubba Ray Dudley, which really brings up and they don't even cut off Bradshaw. Bradshaw said some fucked up shit. They don't cut off Bradshaw, but they end up cutting off Bubba Ray Dudley, and I'm not even sure what the man said. I want to find, I don't know where to look, but I want to find what it was that Bubba Ray Dudley said that they just decided to cut from the network. He says America is not perfect. This is Michael P.S. Hayes. America's not perfect. We're not evil people at the same time. He goes on to say that he kind of loses me by the sound of what he's not making sense in, which is true. He starts talking about wars, and he starts going on about how much blood is being spilled over the years, and how it's not a fair opportunity for this country. I don't know, he sounds like he's getting either philosophical or somewhat he talks about, wars and how much blood has been spilled for freedoms that we take for granted. And then he says, I'm going to leave you with this. These two quotes right here. United we stand, and divided we fall. He said that's the first quote. And then after he says, here's the second quote. Be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. And you know, that second quote is something that I had to learn the hard way. Because on 2 different occasions, I've wished someone dead, and I've gotten my wish. Once upon a time, I wished my grandfather dead, and I got exactly what I asked for. And around that same time, I also wished Rowdy Piper dead. But I guess that's a story for another day. But no, I mean, I already piqued your curiosity, right? So whenever I was like maybe 9 or 10 years old, there was possibly an episode of professional wrestling where Rowdy Piper kept showing up. Maybe it must have been like 9 or 10. I must have been like 9 or 10 rather. And he just kept showing up and kept showing up. And I got so sick and tired, and I know that this is not an excuse, but it's my reasoning for it at the time. I got so sick and tired of seeing Roddy Piper on TV, and not only my family, but also Jim Ross and everyone else that was there at, the wrestling at the time, just kept going on and on and on about what a great man Roddy Piper is, and how much of a superstar that he was back in the days. And oh my God, they just kept. And keep in mind that I'm a child, right? And these are not relevant to my feelings of how I feel about Piper today. Maybe I was annoyed. Maybe, for that matter, I felt as though that, like I'd been watching wrestling for years up until this point, and I'd never heard of the guy. So I didn't understand what all the hype was about. So in an act of rage, I looked up at the sky and I said, I just wish Roddy Piper would die. And wouldn't you know it, I got exactly what I wished for. 2 or 3 weeks later, Roddy Piper would end up dead. And now I feel as though that I am the villain. I feel as though that I am... I hate doing this, man. I really do, because all of you, my listeners, now you... I was a kid. I'm sorry. I really am, because every fucking day I have to live with that. Not only my grandfather, but one of the greatest minds of professional wrestling. Something that I claim that I love, professional wrestling. I robbed everyone of Roddy Piper, and I feel solely responsible for it. So I'm sorry, and that's all that I can give you is just this shallow I'm sorry, I guess. Moving on though, and I'm at a loss for words. But Michael P.S. Hayes, here's what really confused me though. Michael P.S. Hayes gets more time than most people, and I want to hope that I didn't lose any sort of reputation that I'd already had with those of you listening, or for that matter, you think that I'm overreacting. Maybe I am overreacting. Maybe it wasn't my fault that Roddy Piper passed away. I don't know. I mean, who's to say that a child had some supernatural power at that time to just look up at the sky and then say something of that nature, and then all of a sudden, bam, I just manifested it into reality 2-3 weeks later. You know, I think he died in like, what, 05, 06? And I could be wrong about that too. I never even bothered to look it up. Matter of fact, I think that's what I'm going to go do now. You know, just so I can be accurate on my show here. Okay, so he was born on April 17th, 1954, and he died in 2015. So I wasn't 9 or 10 years old in 2015. So just so I'm July 31st, 2015. Okay. We're learning together, you know, because for some reason I thought that he'd passed away in like 06. But I know that I'm not thinking of Eddie, because I never wished Eddie Guerrero was dead. Anyway, Michael P.S. Hayes gets more time than most people, and Shawn Stasiak, the former Meat. This is who I remember Shawn Stasiak as. I've never spoken about the man before, so whenever I seen that he was on this show, I was kind of like, oh, okay, Shawn Stasiak, I remember him. He was a part of a group named PMS. Yeah, so the former Meat, if I remember correctly, is a part of a group named PMS. I do believe he was 1/4 of the group, the other three, of course, being women. Jacqueline, Terry Reynolds, and Deborah, if I remember correctly, but I could be wrong about that. I haven't seen him in a while. Says he gives his condolences for the affected family members. Everything had been taken from them: brothers, fathers, cousins, friends of friends. He says he can't fathom to think what you're going through. Lita gets a huge pop from the crowd. It looks like that she's reading off of a prompt of some sort. Either that, or she's just, maybe for that matter, she's just having trouble getting her bearings together, because it's a very hard subject to talk about, right? The only problem with that is she never reveals what's in her right hand. You see, whenever she's looking down, and she seems to do that frequently, she takes brief pauses between, and almost like, I mean, I don't hear a paper ruffling in her hand, but she only shows one hand, so I'm sort of implying that she's got it in her hand and then she's not moving it. And maybe she just couldn't, you know, like, I can't do this verbatim. I mean, imagine me trying to do a wrestling podcast verbatim. So, I mean, I can't really blame her in one sense or another, because, I mean, but speak from the heart, you know. It's time to speak from the heart is what I've got here on my notes, and this is what you do. She questions who's responsible and who's in charge of putting this together, whose idea it was to bomb the world, to fly a plane into the World Trade Center, and why. But even if we find the answers, it won't change anything. Christian says hi from Houston, and before we get to go any further, he gets interrupted by Chris Jericho, who asks him to please shut the hell up. Christian will, the only thing that they will remember you for on this night is you getting your ass kicked tonight. Then Jericho hits Christian with a flying elbow, shades of HBK, Shawn Michaels. Christian throws Jericho's shoulder into the ring post and starts to take control momentarily. Momentarily, I said. As he works the arm, and he continuously gets near fall after near fall. Only 2 counts for Christian. Lionsault by Jericho off the Bulldog in the corner. Christian gets the knees up for the reversal on that Lionsault after the Bulldog in the corner. Christian hits a reverse DDT. He only gets a 2 count, and he gets frustrated. He starts just beating the hell out of the mat and arguing with the referee. Upon arguing with the referee, however, Jericho gets a small package pin, and for some reason I put the wrong pin here. Hang on. While Christian was getting in the ref's face, I put the schoolboy. No, it is a schoolboy. My fault. Schoolboy pin for the quick 3 count. Couldn't have been a small package or an inside cradle because he didn't, he wasn't facing toward him. He was facing away from him. So instead he just did I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It was a pretty good contest. The only problem was, much like every other match on this card, it's too short. You know, like he comes out, he says a few things, yada yada yada. Here's a big duck, you know. And then afterwards he was like, oh yeah, well you want some fuck? And then he was like, you want some fuck? Well, let's fuck. Bam, bam, bam. I didn't mean it like, okay. That's not what I meant. Never mind. Who's over there? Thought I heard someone kicking a can. Oh, okay. Canyon says his cousins are NYC cops and he's proud of the people of New York City. And he also gives his condolences for those affected in the terrorist attacks. And he wishes America nothing but the best in their investigation to find who's responsible. And for that matter, nothing but the best in the future that is the spirit of America. Canyon, and then Taz talks about, now here's one thing that I didn't understand, right? They're going to cut off, I almost said Robert Roode, they're going to cut off Bully Ray, or the future Bully Ray. I just keep calling him Bully Ray, Bubba Ray, there we go. Taz talks about his future son, holy crap. Taz talks about the future Hook, rather, because Hook was in AEW, and he says he misses his son. He wants to be there to protect him and his wife. His son to help protect his parents who live in Long Island. Either he said Long Island or he said Staten Island. I wrote down Long Island, though. Apparently New York is made up of a whole bunch of islands. I've heard that there's a Coney Island, there's a Long Island, there's a Staten Island, there's an Ellis Island. So, you know, I'm not sure what's going on here, but I thought that New York was a sovereign state. I didn't know that it was made up of a bunch of islands. By the way, I'm making a joke, those of you who don't understand. If you're from New York, you know, hopefully you don't get lost or get your head bonked on a coconut. That's usually what happens whenever you're in an island. Anyway, Taz goes on to say that the people who apparently are responsible for this crisis, they do not deserve to, as a later politician, according to Taz, said, to be brought to, quote, justice. They deserve to be brought to their knees. And you got to fight force with force. And that's how you got to handle this situation. And I do agree with him to some extent. Not just, oh, we're going to find who's responsible and we're going to make sure that they face justice to the severest punishment. I'm sort of right there with Taz whenever he said that too. You can't just, oh, you're just going to bring them to justice. They will have their day in court. That's not going to teach them anything. That's just going to teach them that, oh, you know what? You know what we're going to do? We're going to put you behind bars. That's too good for them. That's way too good for them. And, of course, knowing who's responsible today, or at least who I believe to be responsible today, of course, being Osama bin Laden. And if that is the case, then rightfully so, I do believe that the jerk, the motherfucker got what he deserves, but he deserved so much more. He deserved to be tied to a chair and be executed for 14, 18, or 25 hours. He deserved to have family members come in and read impact statements. He probably couldn't understand what it was that they were saying, given as though that he speaks some foreign language. And don't worry, we'll talk about that here in just a second. Because apparently one of the motives behind these attacks, and you know, I'm not trying to get political here or anything like that. You know, this is supposed to be a good old-fashioned wrestling podcast, not a political podcast. Am I right, boys? I forgot that the boys went on vacation. That's my fault. Anyway, what I mean to say is, is that Tori Wilson, who possibly gives the most heartfelt apology, the woman's in tears, like I was earlier about talking about Roddy Piper, because I feel solely responsible for Roddy Piper's death. Regardless of what year that it happened, or for that matter, when it was that I said that I wished Roddy Piper dead. You know, I still to this day have to live with that, and whenever I watch back clips or anything like that, I always come around to the fact that I'm the guy who, you know, did that, who took him away from his children, who took him away from, maybe I'm over-exaggerating, and you guys can let me know whether or not I'm, for whatever reason, feeling as though that I'm responsible for something that I never really did, you know. And it's not like I had a gun in my hand and I shot him or anything, but I feel as though that I, in one way or another, should have never said those words, I wish Roddy Piper was dead. And the spoken word, knowing now what I know about you know, there's a small subset of people who believe in witchcraft, for those of you who aren't catching on to what I'm saying, and I practice witchcraft. So knowing now what I didn't know then, the spoken word, of course, being I spoke it into existence, Therefore, I am responsible for what I spoke into existence. Anyway, Tori Wilson, who gives, like I said before, the most heartfelt apology that she could possibly muster. And at the beginning of the show, like I said, whenever everyone was lining up, everyone had those little American flags, or they were all chanting USA, 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 and they were doing the whole, Pledge of Allegiance or National Anthem, whatever it was, like I was telling you guys earlier. Tori Wilson had tears in her eyes as she was front and center, and she had been crying all night. Let's just put it that way. And tears starting to flood her eyes, fill her eyes. She starts crying, and she says, "God bless you for," and this is something that no one should have to experience and no one should have to suffer from. She says, "God bless you all." The Hurricane, Shane Helmsley, which I would figure out. See, I thought his name was Shane Helmsley. His name's Gregory Helmsley. But it's actually Gregory Shane Helmsley. I didn't know that. I just thought it was Shane Helmsley. The more you know. I would like to say, and I want to pay my respect for the firefighters who fought through that fateful day on Tuesday. And I would like to take the time to say thank you. Your sacrifice will not be forgotten. Bubba Ray starts up by saying, "What doesn't kill us only makes us stronger." And like I said, they cut him off about whatever it was that he was going to say, but he said that doesn't kill us will make us stronger. Then he goes on to say, yes, a lot of people died that day. I get where you're going with this, but I feel as though that it's a sort of a wrong place, wrong time. You can't kill America in spirit, is basically what he says. Somebody's going to pay for this, and I hope it's soon. And he's about to say something else. Somebody's going to pay for this, and I hope it's soon. The next thing that he says is, and it cuts to The Rock. His entrance music plays, and then all of a sudden, if you smell what The Rock is cooking, which brings us to our next segment. But here's what I said. I want to find what he said before the WWE cut him out. I can't imagine what Bubba Ray said there, because if what Bradshaw said is any testament, and don't worry, we'll get to Bradshaw, the big Texan. If what Bradshaw said is any testament, then what Bubba Ray must have said something that was a little bit more than just PG. The Rock comes out. He's the WCW champion at this time. The Rock calls out whoever. He says, if there's anybody back there that's got a set of balls on them, it would like to come out here and challenge The Rock, he says, please come on out now. Now, Shawn Stasiak, as I stated before, the former Meat, part of a group at the time was known as PMS, but this is not Meat. This is Shawn Stasiak. Meat was back in 1999 or 1998, something of that nature. And he comes out, and then The Rock just trips him and makes him fall to the outside of the ring. No one else comes out. The former Meat comes out. Shawn Stasiak. I'm sorry that I keep saying that, but that's who I remember him as, you know? I don't remember Shawn Stasiak because I never watched WCW. I always thought growing up that WWE was the better show because it was more colorful. I didn't understand what was happening in WCW, and for that matter, I hated Bret Hart growing up. Simply because every time that I would see him, he always had this sourpuss attitude. Like, just grow up, get over it. What the hell are you so sour about? And now I think I know what he was so sour about. All the backstage politicking, you know, the fact that I've read books about it, this and that and the other thing. But he always came off as just, oh, I'm an old man and I'm so grumpy about it. My dad owned a wrestling school. You should respect me more because my last name is Hart. You know, and then I was like, just shut up and get over it, dude. Whatever is going on in your life can't possibly be that difficult. So anyway, that's why I don't watch WCW. Or, I didn't watch it, you know. There's a whole bunch of spill. I just thought that the WWE was a lot more colorful, you know. And as a child, that's what really got my attention, I guess you could say. But Shawn Stasiak comes to the ring. The Rock trips him, makes him fall to the outside. He seems rather disappointed at himself. He's, you know, banging his fists off a wall, and he's like, damn it, damn it, damn it, damn it. And then, after The Rock says, so I'm going to say this again. He says, is there anybody back there who wants to challenge The Rock for the WCW Championship? And of course, Shawn Stasiak has already ran up to the ramp. What does he do? He runs back down after giving someone like a good 12 seconds. He waits, you know, is there any more challengers? No, he's the only one. So, of course, he runs down to the ring. The Rock once again throws him over the top rope, tripping him. He's embarrassed him twice. He goes, damn it, damn it, damn it, damn it, damn it. He's like, God, beep, beep. You know, he's just like, can't stand this shit. Anyway, Shawn Stasiak gets up again, the former meat, and once again, he runs up to the top of the ring ramp, and The Rock, once again, says, is there anybody who thinks that they've got a set of cojones big enough to come out of here and actually challenge The Rock? And The Rock, of course, gets no challengers. So, Shawn Stasiak, the former meat, runs down once again, and this time The Rock goes, whoa, 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 what do you think you're doing? He puts his hand out in front of his face, and he's starting to ask Shawn Stasiak what exactly he thinks that he's doing. He says, I already knocked your ass out twice. He said, out of this ring. He's like, what, do you like that? Doesn't that hurt? He's like asking him questions, you know, like, don't you have somewhere to be, something to do? There's got to be something that you can do here in Corpus Christi, Texas, you know. And then the crowd goes crazy because that's the cheap pop or whatever. You know, oh, he said our town name or our city name or our suburban people name. Yay! He's recognized us as a sovereign city. Anyway, what ends up happening next is basically The Rock just stalling for time or filling time or whatever else. He's just like, oh, I think I know what you like. We can both agree, right? And then The Rock says, you like pie, don't you? And The Rock gives Shawn Stasiak, the former meat, he gives him the microphone. And of course, Stasiak goes ahead and then he says, no, I hate pie. And of course, he has to be somewhat of a party pooper. And it was at this time that I made a observation here on my notes. And then I was like, do you think he actually thinks that, you know, The Rock is actually talking about pie? Because for those of you who don't know, whenever The Rock says pie, it's a euphemism for sex. Yeah. So Well, whenever The Rock says that, anyway, he goes ahead and then he's like, well, now wait just a minute. Wait just a minute. Shawn Stasiak, he's like, so you don't like pie? And of course, Jim Ross on commentary says he might be more of a cake guy, which once again is a euphemism for eating ass, for those of you who didn't know. And also, if you didn't know that song, Cake by the Ocean, by one of the Jonas Boys, that's a euphemism for eating ass as well. I keep on hoping there'll be cake by the ocean. So, there you go. Jonas Brothers, there's your shout out. Anyway, what ends up happening after is somewhat of a comedy trip, because The Rock even asks the Shawn Stasiak, the former meat, if he likes strudel. And then he goes, no, 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 no. So if he doesn't like pie and he doesn't like strudel, The Rock then looks over and sees a cute little blonde. Her name is Stacy Keibler, and we'll hear from her later on in the night. But he looks over and he sees a cute little blonde, and then he asks her, because she's on the ring ramp, if she likes the strudel, the people's strudel. And she's shaking her head up and down, yeah. And she's got a coy smile on, and her eyes get real big. And she came out with Shawn Stasiak, despite the fact that she's saying yes, she would most definitely love the people's strudel. Of course, that's a euphemism for sex for most of you who, once again, don't understand. He's not really talking about pastries and cake and pie and spoons and forks and knives and lions and tigers and bears. Shawn Stasiak comes to the ring, The Rock makes him fall outside of rather humorous. Yeah, okay. He says he hates pie. We've already went over that one. Asks Stacy Keibler if she likes the people's strudel, and she nods her head with a big smile on her face. The former meat then stops The Rock from getting to second base or a home run with Miss Stacy Keibler, otherwise known as Miss Hancock, for those of you WCW viewers, by telling him that he wants a title shot that he was promised. Now, The Rock did say that he would give someone a title shot for coming down and challenging. However, Shawn Stasiak's not much of a challenge, because want to know what happens? The bell hasn't even rung yet. There's already a referee in the ring. I don't think Shawn Stasiak took the former meat took the time to look around him, and he gets hit with a rock bottom straight out the gate. He gets pinned. 1, 2, 3. Rock's music hits. He walks out. He's got his championship over his shoulder, and he says, well, you weren't much of a challenge, now were you? Anyway, he walks away, and I gave it 1 out of 5 stars. If that was supposed to be a match, it was rather entertaining. At least the segment was rather entertaining, not really the match itself. Oh, brother. Not much of a story either. Ivory sending prayers to everyone here, including our WWF Ivory says that she's sending prayers from everyone who was affected in the tragic event that ensued on Tuesday. She says there's a lot more good people in the world than there are bad. And knowing what I know about Chinese philosophy, I can't fully agree with that statement. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Chinese philosophy tells us that for every yin, there's a yang, and for every yang, there is a yin. Now, what that means is that for every good deed done, there is 1,000 bad deeds committed. For every one bad deed committed, however, there is a good deed, or 1,000 good deeds done. So for those of you who maybe didn't really understand what it was that I just said, the universe needs balance. There has to be harmony, and there has to be a good and a bad. And in some cases, there's bad things in good, and there's good things in bad. Now, how exactly am I supposed to spin, using Chinese philosophy, how exactly am I supposed to spin a good thing that happened on this day? I'm not going to try. That is a challenge for someone that is Socrates and not me, because I am no philosopher. However, it's just what I know from Chinese philosophy 101. For every good deed committed, there had to be a bad deed done, or rather 1,000. For one good deed, there's 1,000 bad deeds committed. For one bad deed, there's 1,000 good deeds committed. That, ladies and gentlemen, is balance. At least in the eyes of whoever the hell came up with the yin and the yang and thought that that was a great idea. But as far as I know, the yin and the yang have been around for maybe the 17th, 16th century, maybe even longer than that. This is a philosophy that dates back quite some time, at least to my knowledge. Now we get to Bradshaw. Yes, now we get to Bradshaw, and here's the fun part. Bradshaw is a 250-pound Texan, and he is pissed. Well, he sort of tones it down a little bit, but at the same time, what he says is, okay, so I've heard of people who are cowards. He says, the extermination of Jews by some maniac who's in Germany, all because of some religious beliefs. Yeah, he basically goes on to say that, why did you find it appropriate to fly a building into a plane? Or for that matter, two planes into two buildings. I already made the joke that, they flew buildings into planes. A lot of people were shocked, but no one was injured. Yeah, I already made that joke, didn't I? Well, anyway, Bradshaw goes on to say basically, why would you do that? Like, honestly, these people, he said, had nothing to do with anything that transpired, whether it be your religious beliefs or anything like that. Bradshaw goes on to say, there will be critics that wonder why we're doing this show here tonight. And you want to know what Bradshaw says about that? Go to hell. We're doing this show because America has a backbone. Because America won't fold under any circumstances whatsoever. We do this show because we love America. And for those of you who may be wondering what it is that he's talking about, is the fact that a lot of people at this time were fearful for going into like a huge crowd of people again, because they were afraid that those responsible might be living among us. Not like the video game Among Us, but nonetheless. Okay, so here's what he says next. He says, we will find your ass, and we will make your country into nothing but a shinkety parking lot. God rest the son of a bitch who did this. We will find you. He said that we're going to turn your country into a shinkity parking lot. God damn, son. I mean, we could, I think, right? Who's got dibs on, like, commercial property in, like, Afghanistan? Just turn their entire fucking country into a goddamn parking lot. Make them move east, west, or south. Maybe even north. But anyway, we get the X Factor, which is made up of X-Pac and Albert. X-Pac, of course, is the, he's holding 2 titles at this time, and one of them is the WCW Cruiserweight Championship, and I didn't quite catch what the other one was, versus the APA, the Acolyte Protection Agency. If you've got women, or you've got beer, or you've got money, they will protect you. It's sort of what their thing was back then. Anyway, Bradshaw and Farouk make up the APA. Albert with a pump kick to Farouk. Commentary is getting off subject, talking about Oklahoman barbecue and anything under the sun except for the wrestling match that's happening in front of them, because I don't blame them. It's pretty mediocre, but it's fast-paced. Bradshaw with a DDT and a shoulder tackle through the Big Albert. And for those of you who don't know, Albert must have been like 270, 260 maybe. He had to be a big man. He was around, according to Jim Ross, he was 6'4", but I don't believe that for a minute. He might have been around 5'11", maybe 6 foot even. But there's no way that, I mean, I could be wrong, but the clothesline from hell, the winners, the APA, the crowd get really loud. The clothesline from hell, the 1, 2, 3, and Bradshaw ends up picking up the victory for the team of the APA. Sorry guys, I had to wipe my nose because I was getting emotional earlier over the whole, did I cause Roddy Piper's death? Oh no. A lot of you are probably not going to like me after I admit to it. I don't know. And on top of that, I also blame myself for my grandfather's passing too, because like I said, the spoken word. For those of you who don't know what it is that I'm talking about, there's energy in the words that you speak throughout your day, and you can manifest things just by thinking about them, just by talking about them. So be sure not to say certain words, certain diseases. Try not to think too much about, bad things. I'll go ahead and say one, for example, cancer. Something that you're supposed to steer clear of. Don't say it, don't mention it, don't talk about it, don't think about it. I know that I just mentioned it, and for that matter, it's sort of hard not to think or talk about something whenever you just mentioned something, but the spoken word. Anyway, Kurt Angle. All I've wanted to do is be an American hero. And winning gold medals at the Olympics, I thought that I could consider myself an American hero. But after seeing the terrible tragedies that happened on Tuesday, I know who the real American heroes are. It's the firefighters, police officers, doctors, and their families. Booker T versus The Big Show. You ever had barbecue on a bagel? Is what Jim Ross asks Paul Heyman. And Heyman, he seems rather confused. He's like, wait a minute, earlier you were asking me if I wanted to go to Oklahoma to try some of the barbecue And now you want me to try barbecue on a bagel? He's like, what's your obsession with barbecue, Ross? You know, like, I don't understand this. And for those of you who don't know, I don't know if he was doing it at the time, but Jim Ross does sell award-winning barbecue sauce, believe it or not. And it's rather expensive. I'm pretty sure I looked it up the last time that I did. It was almost $60. It was 68, actually it was almost $70. It was 68, like 99. So if you were looking to get you a good home cooking of barbecue sauce, I'm pretty sure that's only for one too. So it wouldn't come in a 2-pack, but I'm pretty sure it's only for one pack of JR's barbecue sauce. Now I could be wrong about that. He could do sales or something, but the last time that I looked, it was like $68.99 plus $6.99 shipping and handling. You know, because shipping and handling. Anyway, you ever tried barbecue on a bagel? It says Jim Ross through Paul Heyman. Like I said, I don't know whether or not he was selling his barbecue sauce here in 2001, but he does sell it today on jrsbarbecuesauce.com. There's your plug, JR. I hope that you sell some more barbecue, you sick son of a bitch. Booker T brings the big man to his knees by attacking and his leg and sweeping him off of his feet. Not like, you know, you would do to a woman, but rather literally sweeping him off of his feet. Well, I mean, that would be a literal sweeping. Yeah, but I mean not like, you know, coming up to her and then just being like, hey, little mama, what you got going on? 2 count from the scissors kick on the Big Show. Booker T gets yet another 2 count from the second scissors kick. And then while Big Show's down, Booker T hits him with a, what looks to be a Houston hangover, but he doesn't hit it like a Houston hangover. Usually you would go to the top rope for a Houston hangover, so I just called it a senton. A senton leg drop. Lance Storm says even though he's not an American, he feels like this shouldn't happen anywhere in the world. This makes him think twice before stepping on a plane and going to work. And for those of you who don't know, WWE, the AEW, they pay for travel expenses so that they can go across, like from Miami to fucking California or Canada to Chicago, you know, like, and that's probably what Lance Storm has had to do all of his career, all of his life, is get on a plane and then go from point A to point B. So he says it scares him to death to know that he's possibly never going to come home to his wife, his kid. And yes, he's not an American citizen. Technically, he is a Canadian. But still, this shouldn't happen anywhere in the world, is what he says, regardless of whether you're from America or not. Devon, there's crazy people in this world. There's crazy people in this world, and the people out here who think that their religious views are more important, they're going to so prove themselves in a way that's so extreme. I sort of just synopsized what he said, kind of. And then we get Mike Thornton, a RET, which apparently doesn't stand for retarded. It stands for retired naval commander. Can you imagine if he was like a retarded naval commander? He's also the Congressional Medal of Honor recipient. Not sure what he did to deserve that, but alright. He must have blew someone under the table. Anyway, he just thanks the WWE for not being afraid of living their lives. And he talks about fear a little bit. Lita versus Ivory. two hip tosses. I'm not sure why that says hop tosses, and an arm drag by Lita. A 2 count by Lita, a 2 count by Ivory. The crowd is going nuts. Ivory off the face buster only gets a 2 count. Snapmare by Ivory onto Lita, then only gets a 2 count off the cradle pin. She hits the Lita salt, and then she gets the 3 for the win, does Lita. Stacy Keibler, who is 21 at this time, according to her. So I'll just take her word for it. She was born in 2000. What do you know? Wait, 2001? No? Okay, never mind. I'm an idiot. She wasn't born in 2000. I don't know why I said that. I was like, wait a minute, it's 2021. I said at this time, this took place in 2001. I think I was doing backwards math. And for those of you wondering, I didn't just admit that I was doing backwards math. Stacy Keibler, this is something my generation has only had in textbooks, in schools. She's kind of all over the place with her thoughts, and her thoughts and prayers go out to those that are affected. Steve Austin, which is also someone else that he says, I don't have anything philosophical to say. All I can do is offer my opinion. And he just can't help but shake this bad feeling that he's been having from trying to mourn the loss of the people that we love. They deserve payback. They deserve to have what's coming to them. They're cowards. Booker T gives his condolences for those affected in this tragic event. So Stephanie McMahon comes out, right? And she says, a few years ago, someone tried to destroy my family. They tried to destroy my father's reputation. They tried to destroy my mother's reputation. They tried to destroy my family. They attacked my mother's reputation. They tried to tear us apart, but it only made us stronger. Now, I'm not sure what she's referring to, but if I had to guess, I would say that it had something to do with maybe a political campaign that someone was running. And I'm not really sure why they would do that in the WWF. Why would someone try to slander the WWF? Test Devon Bubba Ray versus Scotty 2 Hotty, Tajiri, and William Regal. Super kick by the Japanese buzzsaw on Devon. The Japanese buzzsaw, of course, being Tajiri. Bubba Ray goes for a senton from the top rope and misses. Tajiri moves out of the way. Scotty 2 Hotty cleaning house by knocking all of the members of the opposing team from Test and the Dudleys out. He gets his, he tries to do his worm on Bubba Ray Dudley, but whenever he does, he gets hit by Test. And Test knocks him the flip out. Whenever he does, he 1, 2, 3. This is a really hard match to keep up with, and for that matter, if I remember correctly, Bubba Ray Dudley was the legal man, and so was Scotty 2 Hotty. I never seen Test get the pin from Bubba Dudley. I could be wrong as to my prediction, but why exactly would Scotty 2 Hotty, you know, like, it doesn't make sense. Why exactly would he be doing the worm to the non-legal man? You know, you'd figure that you would want to focus on who the legal man was in the tag team match, in the tag team competition. So Scotty 2 Hotty doing the worm to Bubba Ray Dudley really doesn't make any sense. He could have just, you know, drop kicked Bubba Ray Dudley out of the ring and then said, okay, where's Test? You know, got to go find Test. Find Test, chase him into the ring, and then wrestle Test. until you get Test in a compromised position and then get him on the ring ropes. Test really reminds me of, or rather, not Test, I'm sorry, Big Bill is his name, and he's in Impact Wrestling today. He used to be known as Big Cass. Those of you might remember he used to hang out with a little squirrel named Enzo Amore. And I'm not mad at Enzo at all. Scotty wins. Scotty hits the worm, rather, but then he gets hit by Test, which is the big Mack truck that is Test. 2 out of 5 stars. Lillian Garcia says, and I know that I made this joke earlier in the episode, but whenever I made this joke, I didn't realize that there was going to be someone who was actually put in this situation. Lillian Garcia says that she's fortunate that a certain loved one that she has didn't have to go to a meeting that he was supposed to at 8 a.m. on Tuesday. Either he missed the meeting or they called him last minute and said, yeah, about that meeting, it's been canceled. You got the day off. Then hung up. Either way, whatever context that you want to maybe use to fill in the blanks, whether it be destiny, whether it be some sort of divine intervention, just don't know. You know, maybe the person that called in sick, you know, the person that got fired, like I said, ha ha ha, oh, big building go boom boom, you know, oh, so funny, oh, look at me making cheap fucking jokes. But, you know, I mean, whenever you think about it, the guy who called in sick September 11th, you know, and then he was like, oh man, I can't make it to work today, oh no. Or maybe even people who didn't show up because they were like, oh man, I'm going to be late. This sucks. Because the elevator didn't work or whatever, you know, and maybe the person was scheduled to do maintenance on the elevator. I don't know. You know, there's just so many fucking factors under one umbrella. So just stop and leave me alone. Whew. Okay, so Ron Simmons, he didn't actually say this, but I wrote it down because it's funny. No, really, it is. I promise. Especially if you know about Farouk, if you know who Ron Simmons is nowadays, the man's got one catchphrase. So I decided to write this one down. He says, "Damn, this is a damn tragedy." And something no one should have to endure. Thoughts and prayers go out to those who were affected. So William Regal gets on here and he's sort of cold to the whole thing. He's not really like showing any sort of like he cares. But he does do the same thing. My thoughts and prayers, my condolences, and I'm very sorry. No one should have to, you know, put up with this or anything like that. And Regal's not an American, for those of you who aren't wrestling fans, still listen to my podcast on a regular basis. He is from the UK, and he says that in the UK that they have to deal with terrorist attacks all the time, which may be the case. I mean, I'm not sure. Maybe he's just used to it at this point. But one of this capacity, I don't really know if it's happened like that in England, and I'm going to hope that it doesn't, you know. Albert, all we can do is hope for swift justice to come to these faceless cowards who are responsible for the destruction, the suffering of what they've done. God bless America. And now we go to our main event as Rhino versus Kurt Angle. USA chants ensue despite both men being from the USA. But the USA chants, I'm assuming, is because of the environment that we've been put through throughout the night. Or, for that matter, the people who, here in Corpus Christi, Texas, and for that matter all around the world, have endured throughout the week, watching the news and reading the newspapers and all that other mumbo-jumbo jargon. Anyway, Angle gets a near fall on his opponent. Belly to belly by Rhino, set up the gore on Angle. We get a double down of the reverse, and he reverses into the Olympic Slam, does Kurt Angle. Angle with a set of Germans, he only gets 2 of them. He goes for the third one, but it gets blocked by Rhino. I can't imagine Rhino trying to out-wrestle Kurt Angle. You know, I mean, Rhino might be more powerful than Kurt Angle, but technical wrestling-wise, I see Kurt Angle winning. A set of German suplexes, he hits 2 of them whenever Rhino blocks the third one. But then Angle goes for the overhead belly-to-belly suplex, and he hits it. And he only gets a 2 count, a near fall. Spine buster by Rhino on Angle, and setting up for the gore once again. He only gets a 2 count. Olympic Slam off of the third attempt, or the fourth attempt of the gore. He hits the Olympic Slam, and this time Kurt gets the 3 count and the win. As they're going off the air, Kurt Angle grabs a microphone as Rhino starts to head to the back, and Kurt Angle grabs a microphone as Jim Ross is saying, "Good night, everybody. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. And remember, this will not break the spirit of America." Kurt Angle grabs the microphone and he starts chanting, "USA, USA, USA." And everyone around him is just, you know, they're just, "USA, USA, USA." So they're all chanting USA, 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 if you think about it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do the show for this week. Thank you all so much for joining me. I've been Mocha. This has been the Gut Wrench Podcast, episode number 97, and this has been the 9/11 Tribute Show. I did one of these last year, like I said before. I didn't make as many jokes, you know, I didn't really do, and like I said, these jokes are in bad taste anyway. I mean, if you think about it, because let's be honest, no one wants to sit down and make, you know, funky little 9/11 jokes that are like, these jokes will never be funny. They will always be tasteless. They will always be, I mean, you might get a chuckle out of them just because, you know, I mean, let's be honest, the irony in the situation, but then you're going to look yourself in the mirror and say, that wasn't funny. That wasn't kosher. That wasn't something that I probably shouldn't be laughing at that, you know. Given to know what we know now, not only about the spoken word, but also about everything that we, you know, talked about here tonight, I'm going to hope that whenever the Twin Towers were around, that there wasn't really anyone who was like working their modern 9-to-5 job or whatever, had to wake up every morning, go to the Twin Towers, take out the trash in every fucking floor, probably every fucking day, or for that matter, they were so fed up with their regular job that they were getting, I'm going to put this in air quotes, underpaid for, because I'm sure that the Twin Towers were paying pretty well. But anyway, I'm going to hope that there was never anyone at that time who thought to themselves, even thought out loud, you know, it'd be better off if this whole fucking building just got hit by a goddamn plane. Anything like that, you know? Because we all have days like that. You know, we all have days at work wherever we're like, yeah, well, I'm gonna bring a insert weapon here, you know. I mean, we all have stress and we all deal with stress differently, i.e. school shootings and all this other mumbo jumbo, I want to say nonsense, but you know, like, I'm not trying to make light work of anything that we're talking about here, and it's extremely uncomfortable to talk about this kind of stuff, especially where I'm not in position to talk about stuff like that. I'm not a mandated reporter. I'm not someone who can just, you know, even for commentary purposes, come up with something to say that's appropriate to say. So, with that being said, I think it's best that I just leave it at that. Try to deal with your stress in a rejuvenating, relaxing way. Ladies and gentlemen, try to hug those, like Chris Jericho said earlier on in the night, try to hug those you love a little bit tighter. Try to kiss those that you love a little bit closer. From the Gut Wrench Podcast, my name is Mocha. If I didn't already say that, and I don't think I did, I may have forgotten to do my whole intro spiel, but that's okay. I won't record a third segment just to put it at the top. It's not important, especially given the conduct that we've talked about here tonight. From the Gut Wrench Podcast, ladies and gentlemen, I've been Mocha. This has been the Gut Wrench Podcast, episode number 97. And thank you all so much for joining me. And I hope that you'll join me next week for more wrestling content. Good night, everybody. That's a wrap.